Okay, for those of you that need help on tonight's homework, page 236, number 19 asks you if you drew 24 identical simple figures and they want you to shade 75% of the figures, how you knew how many to shade. So we need to figure out what 75% of 24 is. So we would first change 75% into a decimal, which is 0.75, and multiply it by 24. And that would be 18, so you would shade 18 of the figures. You don't actually have to do the shading, they just wanted you to know, explain how you knew. For number 20, this is a proportion, so you're going to figure out the things that you know and what you need to know. It says Jack played a video game 18 times and won 62% of the games. How many games did he win? So he played 18 times. That's the whole, the amount that he played. So that goes on the bottom. He played he won 62% out of 100. So we need to know X. I'm not going to do the math for you, but you're going to multiply, find cross products. And then divide by 100 to get your answer. So you'd solve 18 times 62 divided by 100. (21) is pretty much the same steps. It says 22% of the 55 boys in the club wanted to play kickball. Use estimation to tell about how many boys wanted to play kickball. Well, that's actually more like number 19. So 22% of 55. If I'm estimating, I could think 20% of 55, which is just multiplying 55 times 0.2. So that would be around 10 or 11 people would be my answer. Question 22, 12 of Derek's 15 pets are fish. What percent of his pets are fish? So you need to change 12/15 into a percent. I would reduce this fraction first. 3 goes into the top and the bottom. And then you need to figure out what percent 4/5 is. I told you that any decimal or any fraction, if you multiply it by 100, you'll get the percent. Question 23. This one is another one. You can identify the times when you're going to try to figure out a proportion when you're given a percent and a number. So the news reporters stated that about 8% of Americans have diabetes, which is about 24 million people. What is about 24 million people? 8%. So that's not the whole, that's part of the whole. So the 24 million people would go on top, 8% would go on top, 100 goes on the bottom, and you're going to solve for X. Looking at 24, they want you to use mental math to find each of the missing amounts. 10% of 1,843, or a percent of anything. If it's like 20% of 125, you just always change the percent into a decimal by moving the decimal twice. So that's just 0.2. So 10% would just be 0.1, 0.4, etc. D says 10% of something equals 17. That one, 10% out of 100. 10% is 17. So you could fill out this proportion, because you don't know what the whole is, but you know 10% is 17, so those are the ones that go on top. 25. 29% of the 61 shells that Tia found were broken. About how many of the shells were broken, you should start seeing a pattern. That's another proportion, because you know 29%. That's going to go on top of your proportion. It's always out of 100. So 29% of the 61 shells, that's the total amount she has. So that goes on the bottom, and you're going to figure out what goes on top. Kay and Lisa spend a day shopping and going to a museum with their mom. At lunch, Kay offered to pay 50% of the lunch bill, which was $28.98, and their mom paid the rest. At dinner, Lisa paid for 50% of the bill, which was $59.50, and their mom paid the rest. Though the girls each paid the same amount, explain. Gonna have to pause.